There are nights when sleep refuses to come, not because your body is restless, but because your heart is too loud. You lie there staring into the darkness, replaying conversations that already ended, worrying about things that have not yet happened, carrying fears you cannot explain to anyone without sounding weak. Your chest feels heavy, like something unseen is sitting on it, pressing gently but constantly. You are not in danger. Nothing terrible is happening in this exact moment. And yet inside you, something feels wrong. Something feels unsettled. You wonder why peace feels so distant when you have tried so hard to do the right things. You whisper to yourself that tomorrow will be better, but the whisper does not convince you anymore. During the day, you move through life like everyone else. You smile when required. You answer questions. You fulfill responsibilities. You laugh at jokes. But beneath all of that, there is a quiet fear that never really leaves. A fear of falling behind. A fear of losing control. A fear that what you are waiting for may never arrive. You look at others and wonder how they seem so certain, so confident, so at ease, while you feel like you are constantly bracing yourself for impact. You ask yourself questions you never say out loud. What if I am making all the effort and still failing? What if my dua is not being heard? What if Allah has forgotten me? The moment those thoughts pass through your heart, you feel guilty for even thinking them. And yet, they keep coming back. Sometimes, it is not even a specific problem that troubles you. It is the accumulation of delays, the unanswered prayers, the doors that almost opened but didn't, the plans that looked promising until they quietly fell apart. You tell yourself to be patient, but patience feels different when the waiting has no clear end. You make dua at night, your hands raised, your voice low, your words sincere. But afterward, when nothing changes, doubt creeps in. Not loud doubt, quiet doubt. The kind that sits beside you and asks softly, "How long will this go on?" You still pray, you still believe, but something inside feels tired. You remember a time when your heart was lighter, when trust came easily, when you felt close to Allah without effort. Now, Salah feels heavier, not because you do not want to pray, but because your heart feels distracted, scattered, overwhelmed. Your tongue recites words your heart struggles to catch up with. You stand before Allah, but your mind is everywhere else, on your future, your fears, your responsibilities, your regrets. After prayer, instead of feeling relief, you feel frustration. You ask yourself why you are doing everything you were taught to do, yet still feel this emptiness. There is a quiet grief in realizing that you no longer trust the way you used to. Not openly, not intentionally, but subtly. You plan excessively. You calculate every outcome. You prepare for disappointment before it even arrives. You tell yourself that this is wisdom, that this is maturity, that this is how adults survive. But deep down, you know the truth. You are afraid of hoping too much, afraid of relying too deeply, afraid of being hurt by unmet expectations. So you carry everything yourself. You hold the weight of your life tightly in your own hands, that even though your hands are trembling, you tell Allah what you want, but in your heart, you have already decided how it should happen and when. And when it does not unfold according to that plan, anxiety grows. You replay scenarios. You imagine worst-case outcomes. You scroll endlessly, distracting yourself from the silence where your thoughts become too loud. You look for reassurance everywhere, in people, in opportunities, in numbers, in timelines, everywhere except the place you used to find it most. And then, in moments of painful honesty, you wonder if maybe Allah is testing you because you are not good enough. Maybe you missed something. Maybe you are being punished. Maybe this is just your fate. But what you do not realize, at least not yet, is that this inner turmoil is not a sign of distance from Allah. It is a sign of a heart that still cares deeply, a heart that still hopes, a heart that still turns toward Him, even while trembling. Allah describes hearts like this in the Quran, hearts that are alive, sensitive, affected. He says, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." Surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Yet when you hear this verse, you feel conflicted. Because you remember Allah, you say His name, you make dua, and still rest feels far away. So you quietly ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? Why does my heart still feel unsettled? The truth is uncomfortable and gentle and heavy all at once. Sometimes the heart is restless, not because it has forgotten Allah, but because it is trying to replace trust with control. Because it remembers Allah with the tongue, but argues with His decree in the heart. Because it believes in Him, yet struggles to surrender the outcome to Him. This struggle is not hypocrisy, it is humanity. Even the most beloved servants of Allah felt it. Even the prophets walked through moments of fear, uncertainty, and waiting. Allah tells us about Prophet Yaqub, a man of immense aman, who lost his beloved son and lived for years in grief and uncertainty. His pain was so visible that his eyes turned white from sorrow. And yet, he said, "Innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah." I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah. He did not deny his pain. He did not silence his sorrow. He did not pretend to be strong. He turned his brokenness toward Allah. And that is where trust truly begins. Not in pretending you are okay, but in being honest about how deeply you are not. You too have been complaining, but often not to Allah, to yourself, to your fears, to the quiet voice that tells you you must fix everything alone. You worry because you care. You fear because you want stability. You feel anxious because you want assurance. None of these make you weak. But when they are carried without trust, they exhaust the soul. Allah never promised that life would be easy for the believer, but He promised that it would be meaningful. He promised that nothing would be wasted, not your tears, not your patience, not your unanswered dua. He says, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. And it may be that you dislike something while it is good for you. This verse is easy to quote and hard to live, because when you are inside the struggle, goodness feels invisible. All you see is delay. All you feel is tension. All you hear is the ticking of time. But what if the delay is not absence? What if it is preparation? What if Allah is not withholding but protecting? What if the thing you are begging for, if given too soon, would break you instead of bless you? Deep inside, there is a war taking place, a war between effort and surrender. You are told to work hard, to plan, to strive, and you do. But you are also told to trust, to rely, to let go. And that part terrifies you, because letting go feels like losing control, and losing control feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability feels dangerous in a world that has already disappointed you too many times. The Prophet, peace be upon him, addressed this exact struggle when he said that if people were to rely upon Allah with true reliance, He would provide for them as He provides for the birds. They leave their nests hungry in the morning and return full in the evening. They do not stay frozen in fear. They do not know where their provision will come from, but they move. They trust. They surrender the outcome. True tawakkul is not passivity. It is effort without obsession. It is action without anxiety. It is moving forward while knowing that the result is not yours to control. Yet your heart resists this idea because you have tried trusting before and it hurt. You hoped and things did not turn out the way you imagined. You prayed and the answer looked different than you expected, so now your heart guards itself. It says, I will still believe, but I will not expect too much. It says, I will still pray, but I will prepare for disappointment. This is where the exhaustion comes from. Not from believing, but from believing without peace. Allah sees this battle inside you. He sees the effort you make just to keep going. He sees the nights you hold yourself together. He sees the dua you whisper when no one else is listening. He says in the Quran, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. You are still standing because Allah knows you can carry this, not alone, but with Him. And perhaps this phase of your life is not meant to teach you how to get what you want. Perhaps it is meant to teach you how to trust who you are dealing with. Perhaps the unanswered questions are shaping a heart that will one day recognize mercy, even in silence. You do not need to force yourself to stop worrying overnight. You do not need to pretend your fears do not exist. What you need, though you may not see it yet, is to understand what Allah is inviting you into through this discomfort. Because sometimes the breaking of our false sense of control is the beginning of real reliance. Sometimes the emptiness you feel is not a loss of aman, but a space being created, a space where tawakkul can finally settle. And as this realization begins to form, slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly, something inside you starts to soften. Not because your problems have disappeared, not because answers have arrived, but because for the first time in a long while, you begin to suspect that maybe, just maybe, you were never meant to carry all of this by yourself. There comes a quiet moment when the heart grows tired of carrying everything alone. Not a dramatic surrender, but a soft letting go. You realize that all the worrying has not brought clarity, only exhaustion. And in that stillness, a gentle thought appears. What if you stop fighting what was never yours to control? This is where tawakkul begins. Not as confidence, but as humility. You still feel fear, but you no longer let it rule you. You begin to trust Allah without demanding guarantees, without needing to see the full path ahead. You accept that His wisdom is greater than your understanding and that His silence is not absence. Allah says, وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And whoever relies upon Allah, He is sufficient for him. Sufficiency does not always mean ease. Sometimes it means strength. Sometimes it means protection from what you thought you wanted. As trust settles into your heart, you still strive, but you stop panicking. You still wait, but without resentment. You learn that patience is not weakness, but faith in motion. You begin to see that delays are not empty. They are shaping you, teaching you, preparing you. Allah reminds you, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. So indeed with hardship comes ease. Not after hardship, but with it. Ease may arrive as calm, as resilience, as a heart that no longer breaks under uncertainty. You stop measuring life only by outcomes and start valuing sincerity, effort, and returning to Allah again and again. Peace does not rush in all at once. It comes gently, in quieter thoughts, in steadier prayers, in the realization that even if life unfolds differently than you hoped, Allah will not abandon you. You move forward now without demanding answers. You trust without conditions. You place your worries in Allah's hands, but knowing they are safer there than in your own. And in that trust, your heart finally rests, not because everything is solved, but because Allah is enough.